Hi guys. So I was thinking about, our discussions and ongoing discussions about writing with evidence and just EdTPA writing in general. So I put this short sort of presentation together and I called it a quiz. It's not really a quiz, but we'll just, you can test yourself. So here we go. Um, and remember, when you're writing in any academic setting, but especially the EdTPA, including the EdTPA, think of yourself as a lawyer in a court of law. Everything you claim must be defended by or with evidence. Okay. So let me be clear. None of the answers in this quiz are perfect. The writing's not perfect. It was just me sitting down, kind of like just putting stuff on paper. So you would want to take that into mind, keep that in mind as well. And I just want to, the whole purpose of this is just to give you an idea of how to integrate qualitative and quantitative or qualitative words and quantitative numbers, data, and what that looks like in writing, in report writing or EdTPA writing, like what you're doing now. So the first question is, what would you rather read? What would you rather read? Example A, B, or C? What do you think is best? And here's the source. I got it from a report. It's not going to apply to the EdTPA, but it does apply to statistics in writing. So here's example A. In May 2018, over 1,804 schools were contacted working under the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements, or SARA. And of those 1,804 schools, 1,791 responded. The response rate in 2018 increased from 99.3 to 99.3 from 98.9 in 2017. And then there's example B. I won't read it to you. And then here's the last example. In May 2018, 1,804 institutions of higher learning working under State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements, SARA, were contacted via email inquiring about online student enrollment. Exactly 1,791 institutions responded, which equates to a return rate of 99.3%. This 2018 figure increased from 98.9 in 2017. And then you have a table to show those statistics. Okay, so take a minute. What would you vote for? What would you like to read, or what's clearest to you? So think about that. So the first example, in the first sentence, the month of May was not capitalized, and I did that on purpose, which is hard for me. And the reason I did that, even though you're not graded for spelling and grammar on the EdTPA, it does make a difference, so your scorer will notice that, and you want to do your best to minimize errors. So run spell and grammar check or whatever you have, Grammarly. And there's a kind of a repeat of information. I mentioned before that repetition in writing this way in academic papers is common and actually expected. That'll allow you to know you're on the right track, but only when it's appropriate. Like the example A, the author wrote the number 1,804 one time too many. He only had to write it once, but he wrote it a couple times. And then in the second one, the one that I did on purpose here was many of the sentences start with numbers, so don't start your sentences with numbers. Start it with a word. And the last thing you want is for the reader to have to interpret the numbers on their own. What do they mean? What is this? How does this, why does it matter? You don't want that. You want the writer, you need to interpret the numbers for the reader. And then example C. I think example C is the correct answer. I think it paints a clear picture for readers. There's a paragraph, and then there is a table. It provides quick and easy review. And also, notice the acronym SARA is in parentheses. I wrote out what SARA stands for and then put it in parentheses. And then after that, you can use SARA in the rest of your paper. But the first time you use it, you got to write it out and then put it in parentheses. So make sure you have that. That's just a little tip that I see a lot because we have so many acronyms as teachers, right? Okay. All right. What example do you think is most effective? Which example? Lesson 3 of my learning segment was designed with Vygotsky's zone of proximal development ZPD, in mind. In lesson 3 of my learning segment, I considered Vygotsky's zone of proximal development when planning, which states, and then you add the definition here. Now example 3. In lesson 3 of my learning segment, I considered Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, ZPD, when planning, which states, add the definition here. This applies to my focus child 1 because list the reason or reasons here. I will support the focus child 1 by, and list the strategies you will use here. I think it's pretty obvious, this one. Example 3. So you're not only giving the definition, which is, okay, that's fine, that's the what, but then you're describing how it applies to your particular student and then how you're going to support that student, which is exactly what you need to do for the EdTPA and just teaching in general. Okay, who do you want to know more about based on these 3 examples? If you were, let's say you were a hiring manager or a principal and you were going to hire a teacher. I'll start with the first and last because I think I'm not a very good test writer, so I'm pretty sure by now you figured out that example C is always the right answer. But here we go. Example A. I am a seasoned teacher with over 30 years experience and have experience in every classroom scenario. Okay, we'll skip B. It's a little bit better, I think. But C. I am a seasoned teacher with over 30 years experience. For 23 out of 30 of the 30 years, and again, this isn't perfect. For 23 of the 30 years I've been teaching, my students scored the highest in the state of Illinois on the standardized test for 3rd graders. So obviously it's just an example of giving more information. So just remember, use words and numbers in your writing. So no, most of the students scored high on the post-test. No. Yes, the majority, 96% of the students had an increase of plus 5% when comparing pre and post-test results. Should have. And also remember, when you have a lot of numbers or data to share, add a table. And then finally, go beyond just explaining or defining a theory or concept. Explain how it applies to your student or students and how also finally how you're going to support those students. So do that and you can feel much more confident in your writing. Thanks.